one of Debbie's younger sisters came to her mother because her friend was just freaking out and crying and talking about some craziness and whatever. So mom went and spoke to her, and she said that the friend of Debbie's sister said that her father had told her that he had shot Debbie in the head, put her body in the trunk of the car, and shotgunned the car into a stripper pit that was filled with water that was nicknamed the Duck Pond.
Every time we're together, it's overshadowed by the fact that someone's missing, someone very important.
I went to pry it open, and when I kicked the door in, next thing you know was all you seen was my brother, and he was slumped over on the couch, and blood just coming from everywhere.
I offered the cops to go take them to the exact spot I pulled over in. When I turned around, I pulled over and I called my wife, and I'm watching him out my rearview mirror, and he's walking towards the tracks. Where he went from there after I left from that spot, don't know.
I was there at St. Joe and Diamond working, mid-morning. My cell phone rings. I don't recognize the number. So this woman, I didn't recognize her because she was distressed. She says, this man come in and shot me.
Welcome to this episode of River City Mystery, the podcast where we look into the mysteries of Southern Indiana, Southern Illinois, and Western Kentucky. In this episode, we're going to be digging into one of the tri-state area's oldest missing persons cases, the case of Debra Ann Wilhite. Imagine being only 18 months old when your mom just vanishes into thin air. Then, just 2 years later, you lose your dad in a freak car accident. And a couple years after that, your only sister passes away from leukemia. It sounds like a horrible movie script from hell, but for Misty Lynn Walker, it's her actual life. Misty has been left behind with a mountain of unanswered questions. And today, she's on a relentless, deeply personal mission to find out what happened with her mom. This mystery goes all the way back to October 14th, 1974. Misty's mom, 19-year-old Debra Ann Wilhite, everybody knew her as Debbie, had just finished up her shift as a waitress at the Windmill Restaurant on Highway 41 in Evansville, Indiana. This is located, for those familiar with the area, this is located at where the Dairy Queen is at 41 and Petersburg Road. There's also a Windmill Marathon station right there. So Debbie had just finished her shift and she was supposed to go pick up her husband after work. She'd walked out to her green 1966 Ford Galaxie and basically fell off the face of the earth. She was never seen again. There have been no phone calls, no letters, no trace of the car, just gone. In this episode, Misty and I have a conversation about what it's been like to navigate a decades-long search for the truth. We discuss some of the theories of the case, like a mysterious hitchhiker who had just hopped off a cattle truck from Indy, and a rumor about a stripper pit known as the Duck Pond. We also talk about the frustrating roadblocks she's hit trying to get police files, and how volunteer sonar teams are helping her look for the car. And we also talk about how she's taking the investigation into her own hands by starting a website, searchingfordebra.com. This is a story about a daughter who refuses to let her mother be forgotten. Misty, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, I'll just start with who was Debra Ann Wilhite? Who was Debbie? And she went by Debbie mostly. She was born Debra Ann Pfettscher. And that starts with a P as in Paul, P-F-E, not an F. And her parents were Lucille and Irwin. She had two little sisters. She went to Tecumseh High School, but she did drop out. And she married my father, Jeff Wilhite, in 1970. So she was born in 1954. She went to Girl Scout camp in 1968. And by 1970, she was 15 and she was married.
Wow. Okay.
Which I just was looking at her scrapbooks and I realized that she had in her scrapbook, she had Girl Scout camp and all these pictures. And like, she literally was married 2 years after this.
Wow.
She was just a child.
Right.
So she was 15 years old and she married Jeff Wilhite in 1970. In 1971, they had their first child, my older sister, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was born in 1973. So when her disappearance happened, it was 1974. She had just started working at the Windmill, which now is a Dairy Queen, and the Windmill Marathon and Bakery on Highway 41 in Evansville, Indiana. At that time, the Windmill, it was a motel, it had a restaurant, it had a garage, it had a service station all on that property. So it was kind of a popular truck stop because it was on the highway. And she had just started working there, I think just like a week before, not very long at all, as a waitress in the restaurant. So her and my father shared my dad's car. My father worked at American Dairy, which was originally in Evansville, and as well. So they shared that car. So I'm under the assumption that he was already at work at American Dairy, and she dropped me and my sister off at her mother's, Lucille,
Okay.
before she went to work.
And they shared a car, correct? Is that right?
Right. They shared his car.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's what she was driving. It was a 1966 Ford Galaxie, a 2-door. It was some shade of green. That is still left to be determined.
Okay.
Some family members have said it was teal. Others have said it was more of a, lighter green. As of right now, I don't have any actual photos of the car. So she dropped the kids off at her mother, Lucille's, and it was just a normal day. She did her laundry at her mom's. So she did some laundry. She put the basket of clean clothes in the trunk of the car and went to work. She worked her shift at the Windmill. 2 things happened while she was working. One of the things was my dad called her and said that she could pick him up at Maple Heights Tavern, which was there at the time. It now is Ponytail Lounge.
Okay. Yes.
I
Right.
think that's the location where it was at that time. So she said, yes, I'll pick you up when I'm done working. The other thing that happened was she was seeing, and this came from the manager and a coworker, like a year later when the Indiana State Police took over the investigation. They said she was speaking to a man. It was raining that night,
Mm-hmm.
and they overheard him telling her that he had hitchhiked there on a cattle truck from Indianapolis, and he was needing to get to Evansville, and he asked her for a ride. One of those people said they thought that they knew each other. The other person said, I don't think she knew him. I think it was a stranger. She worked her shift and she left. It is not known if she gave this man a ride or not. But that was the last time that she was seen. And that was October 14th, 1974. So that was the last time that she was seen. Of course, they always look at the spousal boyfriend. They always look there first. So they lived in Princeton at this time. And I think it's Gibson County.
Yes.
So originally, my father went to the local police in Gibson County, and it sounds terrible, but so my mom ran around. She would be gone for a couple of days. It wasn't an uncommon thing, which, I mean, by the time she was 18, she was married and had 2 children. She never had really a childhood. So anyway, I have no judgment about that. Originally, my father thought that she had left him. She thought that she had just taken off and taken his car. And so on the 16th of October, he went to the local police there to report his car stolen, that she stole his car. And I don't know if she was also on the title, But it ended up where they said, well, we can't report the car stolen, but you can report her missing. So he reported her missing. He also said that she may be pregnant. That was never confirmed. There's no way to know, but
he thought so because that's what he had reported to the police at the time?
Yes, he thought that she might be pregnant.
Okay. Wow. And this was 2 days after she actually had disappeared, that he reports to the Gibson County Police that she's not come back home.
Right.
And you and your sister were at your grandma Lucille's house.
Yes.
And so for that theory, for her to have just left, you're just left with your grandma if we're to believe that she just took off.
Right. And my Lucille raised me, so I always called her mom.
Right.
She always said, yes, she had left a couple days and would come back. Yes, she did that. That happened.
Right.
But she always said she would never leave you girls. And like, if she planned on leaving, why would she have washed our clothes? Because my mom had told me that most of our clothes was in the trunk of the car because she had just washed them.
Right. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. So that is how that all started. So she was 19. She would have been turning 20 like a month later.
The employees that she worked with at the Windmill Restaurant, they thought that she might know that man that she was talking to. Do you know, was he talking to her in the restaurant, or were they in the parking lot, or do you know where they were talking?
It was in the restaurant.
Okay. And I wonder what made them think, or what made one of them think that she knew him.
It's hard to tell. Waitresses are typically just friendly because that's part of their job. So it could have been that aspect of it made it look like she knew him. And he was just like an average looking man with dark hair, average height. Like there was no outstanding characteristics that made him stand out in any way.
The story is that he had hitched a ride from a cattle truck down from Indianapolis. And he was somehow ended up there, and he asked for a ride somewhere to Evansville apparently your mom supposedly offered to give him a ride, but no one saw her take him anywhere. No one saw him get into her car or anything like that. That's just kind of a theory, right?
Right. It's not known if she agreed to give him a ride at all. It's not known if she agreed to give him a ride. It's unknown if he got in the car. It wasn't seen. At least if it was seen, it was seen by someone who never came forward.
Did the police ever follow up on cattle truck drivers from Indianapolis? Have they talked to people who may have seen this guy or given him a ride?
They did. So in 1976 was when this case was taken over by the Indiana State Police.
Okay.
For my understanding, I don't think there was much done before that. This was in 1974. Missing persons cases were very different back then. Well, she's an adult. She can leave if she wants to. But my mom insisted that she would not have left. She maybe left on her own, but she was prevented from coming back. That's what she's always believed. And I do believe it too, because and I've talked about this before, but I'll never release the actual copy of the letter, but there was a letter found that was from my mother, Debbie, to another man in the neighborhood. And it was a love letter. But even in a love letter to another man, she had talked about how she had to go to the dentist. She had to get a tooth pulled, and she was going to make sure that her daughters always took care of their teeth and didn't have to go through this. So even speaking to someone else, she was thinking of her daughters, me and my sister. So I too don't believe that she just didn't come back on her own. She may have went somewhere after work, but for her to not come back completely, something happened to her. Or
to phone or to write a letter or something to her mother if she knew that you guys, or to her husband if she knew that, hey, I've decided to do XYZ and sorry about that, but she never did call or write a letter or anything.
No, and so the Indiana State Police, got to them in May of 1976. Is when the Indiana State Police took it over. And they did look into the cattle truck drivers from that area that would have went through, that from Indianapolis through that area. And they found 2. One of them they talked to, and the driver said, "No, I don't pick up hitchhikers because it's against the rules. It's against policy."
Right.
Whether that was true or not, who knows?
That's what he would
because if
say,
it's
right?
Against, right.
He
If it's
doesn't
against
get fired,
policy, you wouldn't tell anybody.
Right.
The other one, they said he had moved, and
Okay.
I don't know how hard they looked for him, but they didn't speak to the other one.
This is the frustrating part of all of this, because it's like you wonder how, because you always kind of assume that with these investigations that every rabbit hole has been jumped down, and then you hear things like that, like they didn't even talk to one of the 2 cattle truck drivers who may have given this guy a ride.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's got to be frustrating on your end.
And it's even like it gets more frustrating as it goes, because this happened when I was 18 months old, and now I am now 53 years old. So it's been over 50 years. So the Indiana State Police used to not have a cold case unit. They have a cold case unit now that is new, I think, as of last year. It's very new. So the detective that has my mother's case knows me by name and is very familiar with me because I email her periodically.
Right.
I've asked for the case file a couple of times. I put in the official way that you put in a request. And if you go by the Indiana State Police, like their actual like written policies, rules, whatever, it's all at their discretion if what they want to, like what they would want to give me out of the case file. It's at their discretion. There's actually no proof or evidence that any crime has even been committed. I don't see how them giving me more information out of the case file would anyway hinder their investigation.
50 years later, I don't think so, right?
Because what are they? The last thing they looked at, I gave them.
Right. Okay.
I gave them.
Okay.
Because my newest campaign is looking for the car. It's easier to find the car than it is to find her. So my newest campaign is I found out exactly the type of car, the color I'm still unsure about, but the actual car, I know what the actual car body looked like. And we know the year. We know what the license plate was. And I had been posting on her Facebook page, Missing Debra Wilhite. Everybody wants to help. This is how you can help. Look for the car. Like it could be, of course, a body of water. It could be in a body of water, which Chaos Divers has, God bless them, they have, started doing they've been doing water searches. They found like 5 people that have been missing for years.
Absolutely. I follow them on, they're basically a volunteer group that does sonar searches of bodies of water. They want to help find people who are missing.
Yes.
Or basically they find cars and then hope that people are in there that they can solve some of these cases. They do a great job.
And they do it. They ask nothing.
Yeah.
They ask nothing of you. They do it 100%. It's 100% fundraising donations.
Now they came out here in September of 2025 to do a search. And I know they looked a lot around the Bluegrass Fish and Wildlife area. And an area they were looking for what was called, I think you call it the duck pond. And I know you did a series on YouTube where you talk about, it's called the Duck Pond Diaries. Do you want to explain a little bit about the duck pond theory?
Sure. That's one of the many theories. So it comes from facts, though. Like I had said, my mother, Debbie, had 2 younger sisters. So at some point after she had disappeared, one of the sisters had a friend over spending the night. And at some point through the night, one of Debbie's younger sisters came to her mother because her friend was just freaking out and crying and talking about some craziness and whatever. So mom went and spoke to her, and she said that the friend of Debbie's sister said that her father had told her that he had shot Debbie in the head, put her body in the trunk of the car, and shotgunned the car into a stripper pit that was filled with water that was nicknamed the Duck Pond.
Okay.
Her father, which I'm not going to say names because I don't think it's necessary. He has passed away. She was a child when it happened. She was interviewed later as an adult by the Indiana State Police. She doesn't know if it's true. She doesn't know what the location actually is. If it is true, he was like not a good guy. I think he was an alcoholic. He probably did drugs. He wasn't the most trustworthy, person to go by. So my mom, Lucille, said that she, after hearing that, called the police and told them what she had been told. So the father also told his daughter that I will kill you too if you tell anyone.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how old was the daughter when he was telling her this?
She was probably around 12-ish.
12. Okay.
So the duck pond. So that's always been my nemesis because the duck pond. Okay. Let me try to keep things straight because there's current stuff in the duck pond also. So my mom, Lucille, said that she called the police and told them and that she never heard anything. So she figured that they looked, nothing was there, and it was done. So in 1994, I was about 20-ish, and I had my first child, and he was about the same age as I was at that point when my mother disappeared. So it really started me thinking about that because I had a child that was the same age as I was when another disappeared. So I really started digging into it. I wrote to all the places. I tried to get media coverage or whatever. So the Courier and Press, Evansville Courier and Press, ended up doing a full-page cover story about my mother's disappearance. And in the process, they put me in touch with the detective at Indiana State Police that was on my mother's case.
Okay.
And he let me and my mom, Lucille, go into the Evansville Post and sit down and read the whole case file.
Okay. Wow.
Read it, all of it. In hindsight, I wish I would have taken notes. They won't give you copies. There's so many things that I saw that I don't remember anymore. But one of the things that was not in the case file was anything about the duck ponds. Nothing. Not that she called and told them, not that it had been investigated. Absolutely nothing.
How could that not be in the case file? That's a pretty significant tip.
That's
right?
still a question. So the detective at that time, he said, if I would have received it, it would be in the case file. So I don't know what happened. Maybe someone took a message and it didn't get to who it was supposed to. I don't know.
But when your mom or when Lucille called the Gibson County police, it was like the city police she called, not the Indiana State Police. I'm assuming just 911 or whatever. So it's possible they never relayed that message or information to the Indiana State Police.
I don't know who she told.
Okay.
And she's passed away in 2019, so I can't ask her any more questions. But she said that she called and asked for him specifically, is what she said.
Okay.
So it must have been after May of 76 when that happened. So at that time, so again, this is 1994, and I relayed to him everything that Lucille had told me. Of course, she was hot because she insisted, I told you. They looked into it then. And at that time, he said, we found where the location is.
Okay.
We know where the duck pond is. It had been drained of the water in the 80s and filled in. And when it was drained, there was like 15 feet of like silt at the bottom that would have covered the car. And then multiple detectives later, like I've spoken to everyone as the years go by. I don't even remember what number we're on now, but there was one that was going to take me back to where the duck pond was. So this was after the first detective. He said he was going to take me to where the duck pond was, the area.
Which he said existed. Like he acknowledged that it exists. He knows that duck pond is a thing. Okay.
Yes, I was told that it was found and they know where it was, but there's no evidence. There's no facts. There's no lead. There's no evidence, so that they would never like excavate the area.
I mean, what evidence would there be? I mean, there's a tip. You have a tip saying this is what happened, and then what else? What other evidence do you need? A bumper sticking out of the ground? I mean, what?
Yeah, I'm getting it. So they said they knew where it was. Multiple people. This is the second detective now that told me they knew where it was, and they were going to take me to see it where it was. By this time, this is like late 90s. Because I was still living in Evansville at the time. But everything, there was always an excuse like, oh, it's too muddy. We can't get back there right now, blah, blah, blah. They never told me like what area or anything. So I never got to see it. And then just recently, I believe this year, when I was corresponding with the current detective on the cold case unit that has her file, she said that she's looked in the case file twice and she saw nothing of the location of the duck pond. And it's unclear if she's said it's a lady detective. It's been unclear. She hasn't really made it very clear if there's mention of the duck pond, but there's no mention of the location, or if there's no mention of the duck pond at all.
And you've been trying to get a hold of the case file again, unsuccessfully. But I mean, you did get to view it back in 94, but then you want to see, hey, what developments have happened since 94 that you may not know about, or what they did not investigate, kind of confirming that they did or didn't look into the duck pond theories, things like that. That would be nice to know.
I'm going to push again, the more that thinking on it again, like I'm going to push again. Okay, I've been told by two different detectives that they knew where it was. In her defense, maybe it was overlooked and it is in there and she just overlooked it. But I feel like I should be told where it was. Someone had contacted me like a year and a half ago or something and said that she was an intuitive, and she said that my mother had come to her and that she was in the bluegrass area, like that she was there. So she even went to the police and told them. And when they wouldn't listen to her, then she came to me. So I contacted them. That's how the Chaos Divers got involved, because I needed someone to go and look. It was the first time that I had a location.
Right.
Where nothing was found. They looked there. There was actually in the bluegrass area a buck pond, B as in boy, buck pond. And one of my aunts, my mother's youngest sister, texted me that information a while, when that all was going on. It was like, maybe it was actually the buck pond, but she misheard it as the duck pond. So Chaos Divers did look there. They actually looked there multiple times at the buck pond, and they found nothing as well.
Okay.
So that didn't bring up anything. But it does make sense that the car, like there's been so many people that have been found because their car has just been sitting in a body of water for decades. So it makes sense. And the Duck Pond Diaries, I just really it's me venting and talking about what I want to talk about, when I want to talk about it, how I want to talk about it.
No, it's good to have that outlet so that you can kind of get all this off your chest. And absolutely, because it's got to be beyond frustrating to try to get answers and to be. Honestly, I don't understand why there'd be hesitance to provide you with whatever. I mean, it's been 50 years. What harm could come from releasing information at this point?
So the first denial that I got was a paralegal email that it's an open investigation, blah, blah, blah. Thanks. Have a great day. Like, okay. I sent another one. I sent it directly to the email of the person that's over the legal department, which you can pretty much find anything online like that. So I emailed directly. They emailed back and basically said, I can't help it that you were allowed to look at the case file in 1994. You shouldn't have been able to. You shouldn't have been allowed to, but I can't help that. You're not going to get a copy of the case file because it is an open case, and they could still charge someone. That's what their focus is on, is if they they want to be able to charge somebody for like a crime. But you haven't even proven there's been a crime yet. So,
and it's possible, right, that that's another theory I've kind of come upon, is that she just said, she could have just driven into, or maybe she went for a drive and ended up in a body of water, and it was just an accident, because that happens all the time too, where people just have an accident. And she just happened to have talked to somebody earlier in the restaurant, and people are making connections that maybe aren't there. But so, yeah, it's not necessarily a crime that they're needing to protect, from charging someone later on. But
I don't care about that right now. Like, first you have to find her. That's the first thing that has to be done. If you want to charge somebody, whatever. But
well, and also with the duck pond there, I mean, have you looked at maps of that area back in that time when to see if like the buck pond even existed, or if
I haven't, but Chaos Divers has someone that does that.
Okay.
Her name is Shelly, and she's awesome. I've spoken to her via text, but she volunteers her time and she does that. And they have I don't know how many bodies of water that they have looked and still have marked to look at again. And she knows, like, yes, this was here then. No, it was not. And there's some bodies of water they have marked that they're unsure if it was there or not, but they're still going to look.
Okay.
Because like there's some places that are technically on private property that, it's unclear if it was there or not. But Chaos Divers and Shelly, and there's other people that I don't know that help. They do that. They have done that. There's a really nice article. If you Google Crossroads Debra Wilhite, it should come up. I think it's Crossroads Media LLC. She did a really nice, thorough article about my mother's disappearance, including maps.
I'll link that in the show notes. If anyone wants to check that out, I'll link that.
It's very thorough. And she has like maps of like, this is where Lucille's house was. This is where the windmill was. This is where my father's work was. Like all of that. It's really thorough. So I've looked at that. I've saved those because that's something that I've not done. It's kind of tricky for me because I will become obsessed. My girlfriend says that I'll start spinning, is what she says. You're spinning. And so I have to kind of just let it, like, put it down for a little bit sometimes. Yeah. Like I haven't done any of the Duck Pond Diaries. I think I did 10 videos, but I haven't done one since October because I have just kind of put it down. But I'm kind of doing different things. I have an official website now called Searching for Debra, Debra.com. Previously, I've had like the first page that I made for my mother was on MySpace. Okay. So that was a very long time ago.
Absolutely.
And so she has a Facebook page now and a TikTok, and the YouTube is also, I've changed. They're all at Searching for Debra. So this is the first time that I wanted something more permanent that I can put all of her information in one place. It's still in development. I'm doing it myself, and I work full time and whatever, so it takes a while. So there's some information on there, but it's my goal that everything about her and her case will be on this website, including any updates. The last update, which I touched upon, I didn't really go into. When I had been posting about the car, people can look for the car. If you see old cars in a barn or behind a shed or on, overgrown property or in the woods somewhere, take a look at it and see if it's this kind of car. And I had somebody contact me and said, hey, I saw this car when I was driving to my mom's house in Mount Vernon, and it looks like the car that you're looking for. And she sent me a picture. And I was like, it is. It's that kind of car.
And it was green.
So it looked like it was painted black over green.
Oh, wow.
Is what the picture looked like.
Even stranger.
And that blew my mind because I'm so stupid. I was like, I never even thought about that somebody could have just kept it and painted it and whatever.
Right.
I don't really concentrate on the color of it anymore for that reason. Anyway, I gave this information to the detective on her case, and she said that she did go and spoke to the residents, and there was actually 2 Ford Galaxies on the property, but the VIN numbers didn't match because we do have my mom's VIN. But so that's the most recent update on her case, and I gave them that information.
Those are the kind of tips that are helpful, by just getting it out there, and then you hear somebody, oh, there's a Ford Galaxie behind a barn, and sometimes that's all it takes to blow open a case.
Yes.
Your website's actually a very nice website, searchingfordebra.com. You've got a gallery like of your family members, just pictures of your mom and your dad and your sister and your grandma, or your mom, as you call her, updates. And then your updates, you have a mention of, so your Debbie is also missing. She's on the California missing persons website, because one theory is that she may have taken off to California, maybe with this person she had sent a love letter to, maybe. Well, I didn't ask, but did they look into that person?
They did. Yeah, they did. He's told them that they did see each other, but they hadn't been recently seeing each other. He was still there, so he didn't run off. He was still stayed local. And I take it he was not a suspect, or he had an alibi or something, I'm assuming? He was never a suspect. Same as my father. He was never, they interviewed him. He was never a suspect. Well, I was just looking at the missing persons website for California, and they have that the car is red. So that's also something that's new, because that came from, there was she was actually underage when the police interviewed her. And I don't know if she went to them or if they went to her, but there was this underage family friend that told the Indiana State Police that she was partying. Her and some friend were partying with these 2 older guys. And one of them told them that she had ran off to California. That's where that came from. Oh, okay. So until just a couple of weeks ago, whenever I put that, whatever date the update is on the website, that is the date that they updated. Previously, they had a picture of her that looked like a faxed photo. It was a horrible photo, and they didn't have any information about the car. I contacted the California and told them who I was and said, can I give you updated information and a better photo? I don't know why they put the car as red. I have no idea. They have updated her photo to be the less fax-like picture. So it is crazy that I gave them that photo. These missing sites, doing all the research I do, it's like sometimes they use the crappiest photos, and it's like I can Google and find much better photos of this person, but maybe that was what they were provided with back in the day or something. Yes, and it had not been updated this whole time, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me to contact them before, but I'm doing that more, just taking things upon myself. So they updated her photo finally, and they did update that additional information and added additional information. I don't know where they got red from. That I don't know where they got that from. But at least the information is there, so it's updated with that at least. What do you think that's, I mean, how much credibility do you put towards that theory that she might have just taken off to California? I mean, really anything is possible. I don't believe, but I'm also open to pretty much anything, because, she was 19. Yeah, it was the 70s. It was the 70s. But she was like, she had just started, she didn't have money. That's the only thing, is like, she didn't have money. And also, if she would have just taken off, like, her social security number has not been used. The car just disappeared. It was never re-registered or renewed. And she didn't have money to, like, can you get a new, make a new life and change your identity? Yeah. But you have to have money typically to do that. It's not cheap to just disappear and to start anew somewhere else. I think the fact that the car has not been found is the most telling thing. And I think the duck pond theory seems to be a pretty valid theory. I think one issue could be that, like the state police had said, the pond that may have happened at may have been filled. Mm-hmm. So I wonder. But where is it?
Is there a way? I know there are ways, like with chaos divers, they use sonar. Is there a way to find a vehicle buried 30 feet below the ground with using some sort of radar or technology that they might not have had,
I've actually looked into this, and I have been told by numerous groups that they would need something that could not only find the car, but then also be able to see if there were skeletal remains inside, because there's probably multiple cars, because that is very common for, like, I think it was chaos divers. There was one place where they found like 90 cars or something in this one body of water. And I remember hearing something about some car lot that did some kind of insurance scam or something. And they put all these cars in a body of water to get, yeah. So there's cars everywhere. And the thing with the stripper pits is, like, when they're done with the stripper pits, a lot of times, like, metal scaffolding, I don't know what they use, but like they'll put their excess machinery, whatever, into the pit and then fill that in. Like, that's just a way to clean it up. So it's possible the buck pond, or I don't know how deep it was when they looked, but in my mind, it's possible that she is in the bluegrass area. My aunt said that she had actually always wondered about that area because that was all stripper pits. The bluegrass, it was all stripper pits back in the day, and then they made it into a nature preserve.
And I think it was a popular place for people to go, and it was a place that people who were up to no good were going to hide things, is from what I understand back in the day.
Right.
But now it's kind of a nature preserve kind of an area, but back then it was not.
So my current goal is I'm going to ask again, where is the duck pond? I've been told by more than one detective at the Indiana State Police that they knew where it was. I want to know where it is. The detective's going to get tired of hearing from me, but I can't. She's my only resource. She's my only access. I did ask her. I told her about the website, and when we were talking about when she told me about the car that she was able to go and look at, I told her about the website and my goal for it. And I said, if you have any other public information that you would be able to give me, that I could put on the website, and she didn't respond to that, and I haven't heard anything else. That was a few weeks ago.
And I see you have a link on your homepage to submit an anonymous tip. So if someone wanted to reach out with some information, sometimes people may not want to call the police for whatever reason, but they might leave an anonymous tip on a website where, that could be helpful.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, That is something else that's never been available before. And it is completely anonymous. I don't get, I've actually gotten a couple on the website, but they were more just comments. Unless you put your information, I don't get your email. I don't see your name. It's just the information. And if it's of anything that I could give the police, it's something I can give to the police, and it is 100% anonymous.
Well, even though so much time has passed, the hope is that someone will hear your story and all of these details, and maybe it'll rack someone's brain. They'll be like, wait a minute, so-and-so was in that area, or so-and-so had a green Galaxie for some reason for 2 weeks and they got rid of it.
Right.
Something like that would be triggered with someone where it might kind of open some new doors to solving what happened.
My mom, Lucille, had told me that back in the day, someone told her that they saw the car in somebody's garage, but there's nothing came of that either, just like the duck pond. So
right. It's just one of those theories out there that's
one of the many.
Are there any other theories that are floating around that, may or may not have any credibility to them?
There's still some people that say that it was my father. But there's no, literally someone sent me an old article or something. And then this is on Facebook, and then they messaged me saying, we still think that it was her husband. And that because they accidentally sent it to me instead of who they were talking to.
Right.
So,
whoops. Okay.
Yeah. But so I know that people still think that.
And he was accounted for, right? Like he had to
he was at the tavern.
Right.
And
So
then,
that couldn't have, that doesn't seem to be very credible that he had anything to do with it.
no, and my mom, Lucille, she didn't believe that he had anything to. He believed that she left him. I think that's what he really thought. And he passed away in September of 76.
So 2 years later, you lost your dad after
Yeah.
this happened with your mom. My gosh.
Yeah. He had moved in with me and my sister to Lucille's.
Mm-hmm.
And just to take care of us. So it's like she watched us when he was at work, but she would always say that once we got home, we were his. Like she didn't just raise us, she helped take care of us, but he was a very devoted father. And he felt like his wife had left him. So I don't believe that he had anything to do with it at all. And everyone that I've spoke to that knew him doesn't believe that either. I know that they talked to the guy that she had written a letter to, but there's never been like an actual lead or actual evidence that they could run with other than the duck pond that they didn't look at in the 70s.
To me, they could look into some things maybe with technology now that they didn't have back then. I think they should continue looking for this person, this other cattle truck driver, and maybe, or the cattle truck driver, to see if he had given someone a ride. I don't know if it's too late to ask those sorts of questions, but
I don't think it's ever too late.
Right. But maybe that guy has, because it's stunning to me, the things that someone reached out to me a few months ago on another case, and they're like, I thought the police would ask me these questions and they didn't. And so I'm working on that situation, but it's crazy to think this person might be out there who has this information and the police just never followed up. And they just think, oh, they have what they need, or they would ask me, because I think people just assume that if it was that important, they'd come to me. And that's not what always happens. So,
yeah, maybe she did give him a ride and dropped him off somewhere before she was going to go get my dad, but didn't make it.
Exactly.
There's no way to know.
It would just open up some new doors and some information to be able to kind of chase some things down. So,
I would appreciate if people would just go to the website Searching for Debra and just take all the information in and let us know if they know anything or see anything or hear anything.
Well, I thank you for telling me about your mom's story, and hopefully this is helpful in some way. Maybe somebody will listen to this and come forward with a tip that'll be helpful.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And if you think you may have some information that could be useful in solving Debra's case, reach out to the Indiana State Police at 812-867-2079. Or you could submit an anonymous tip at searchingfordebra.com. All of the links that were mentioned in this episode are in the show notes. Or you could go to rivercitymystery.com/23 to find those. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Until next time, take care.